This will be for the con exercise, estimating equations of lines of best fit and using them to make predictions. So for all of these problems, they're going to give us a graph with a scatter plot, and they give us the line of best fit drawn on the graph. Okay, and in the first question, you're going to have to determine the equation of this line. Okay, so the first one's going to be multiple choice, and it's going to be the line equation. All right, and as we already know, these equations are in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m represents your slope and b represents your y-intercept. And all of these problems will also have a follow-up question where you have to predict the y value given the x value. So we'll get to this later, but usually the value that's given, you're going to plug that in for x and get the y value. All right, so let's start by labeling the axes. Okay, this left-right axis is always going to be the x-axis. All right, I'll put it right here. And the up-down or vertical axis is always going to be the y-axis. All right, and if you recall the formula for slope m, that's going to be change in y over change in x. All right, you can also write it as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so we're going to obtain the slope from the graph. And what you want to do is look at this blue line that they gave us, and you want to choose points that are on the corner of the boxes. Okay, because if you choose a point that's on the corner of the box, it's going to be easier to read. All right, so I'm going to start with this point here. And if I go to the y-axis, that's going to be 80. So my first y value is 80 minus, and then just choose another point that's on the corner of the box. Let's say this one here. This is probably the easiest one. If I trace it to the y-axis, that's 10. So my other y is going to be 10. And now you just do the same thing with the same points, but you use the x coordinates. So if I take this point and I trace it to the x-axis, that point is x equals 80. So for the first x, that's going to be 80 minus, and then the other x, here's my other point. You just go to your other point, and right here, that's a 10. All right, so it's just a coincidence. I happen to get the same thing in both cases. All right, if you're confused, if you just look at the coordinates of this point, the x coordinate is 80, and the y coordinate is 80. Okay, if you want to do it that way, you could do it that way. And for this point here, the x coordinate is 10, and the y coordinate is 10. Anyhow, 80 minus 10 divided by 80 minus 10, that's just 70 over 70. Okay, and of course, that's just 1. All right, so far, the slope equals 1. In other words, m equals 1. And now we just have to find the y-intercept. I'm just going to write int. And for the y-intercept, you just go to the y-axis, and you see where the line crosses the y-axis. Right, if you look at this line here, and you go to the y-axis right there, on the y-axis, this is at 0. All right, so the y-intercept equals 0. Okay, in other words, b equals 0. So if we were to write our equation, y equals mx plus b, that's going to be y equals m, which we said was 1, x plus b, which we said was 0. Now, do we have to write a 1 when in front of the x? No, we do not. Okay, when the coefficient in front of x is 1, you don't write it. So it's just y equals x. We don't need the plus 0 either. So this right here. So this is our equation, and we're going to go to our multiple choices. Okay, and remember, this is just an estimate. Just in case you get something that is a little bit different from the choices, just choose the closest one. But I think we got this one exact, so let's look for y equals x. All right, and clearly from the choices, we can see it's answer choice D. All right, just so you know, this little symbol on top of the y is because this line doesn't fit the points accurately or perfectly, so it's just the line of best fit. So that's actually read y hat, okay, but you don't need to know that. It's just for your information. Anyhow, this is the equation. All right, follow-up. Based on this equation, estimate the score on the second exam for a student whose first exam score was 88. So let's see. We want to estimate the score on the second based on the first. All right, exam 1, that was the x-axis, and exam 2, that was the y-axis. So, since the second exam is the y, and the first exam was the x, we want to use this equation and solve it at this value of x. Okay, x equals 88. And we want to find the y value. So at x equals 88, y equals, and if you plug in 88 right there in place of x, you're just going to get y equals 88. Okay, so you just want to take the x equals 88 and plug it in. All right, so we're plugging in the 88 in place of x, and it's just y equals 88. All right, so right here in the box, you just click in there and type 88. All right, so once again, we have our graph and our line. The x-axis is this one right here, and the y-axis is this one right here. All right, so let's try to get the slope m. That's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so if we pick points that are on the corners of the boxes, all right, we can pick this point here, and the y-coordinate is 40. So the first y2 is going to be 40. And then if we pick another point on the corner of the box, let's do this one right here. This looks pretty convenient, right on the corner. And that's going to be y equals 30. So it's minus 30. And now we want x coordinates. Okay, so make sure you do them in the same order. All right, so we're going to go back to this point here. This is going to be point number 2. And this is point number 1, just so you know. All right, so now we want the x coordinate. If we go here to the x-axis, this is the x-axis at 0. All right, so x2 is 0 minus the other x. So you go to this point, you find the other x, go to the x-axis, and that is at 20. 40 minus 30 is 10. 0 minus 20 is negative 20. And 10 divided by 20 is going to be 1/2, but it's negative. So that's actually negative 1/2. I think they're going to have it as a decimal, negative 0.5. All right. And just in case you're confused, the coordinates for this point right here, the x coordinate is 0 and the y coordinate is 40. And for this point right here, the x coordinate is 20 and the y coordinate is 30. Okay, so that's all we did to get the slope. We subtracted 40 minus 30 divided by 0 minus 20. All right, and now we just need our y-intercept. And we can see right here, this is the y-axis. And the line crosses the y-axis right here at y equals 40. Okay, so the y-intercept is going to be 40. All right, so that's the value for B. That's 40. And we said the slope was negative 1/2. I'm almost positive their answers are in the form of decimals. So instead of negative 1/2, I'm going to write negative 0.5. All right, so if you do y equals mx plus b, that's going to be y equals m, which is negative 0.5, times x, plus b, which is 40. So it's plus 40. And this right here is the choice we're looking for. Negative 0.5 x plus 40. If not, we're going to choose the closest one. Answer A, negative 0.5 x plus 40. Based on this equation, estimate what percent of adults smoked in 1997. All right, like we said before, this is the x-axis, the year since 1967, and this is the y-axis, the percent of adults who smoke. All right, so the percent of adults who smoke is going to be the y. And in 1997, let's see, we said x equals the number of years since 1967. Okay. So if we're looking at 1997, how many years is that after 1967? Well, if you just do 1997 minus 1967, you're going to get 30. Okay, that's 30 years since 1967. So x equals 30. All right, you want to take that and plug it in. All right, so make sure you use the equation that you selected, and x equals 30 is going to go right in there. So that's going to be y equals negative 0.5 times 30 plus 40. All right, you can use a calculator. I can do this in my head. Half of 30 is 15, but it's negative. Plus 40, well, 40 minus 15 is going to be 25. So that right there is your final answer. Okay, like we said at the beginning, the follow-up question, you're going to be plugging in for x and getting the value for y. So click in the box and just type 25. All right, just so you know, on some of these, the y-intercept can be negative. All right, so if you look at this one here, just real quick, I won't do the whole problem. This is your y-axis, and if you go down this y-axis here, This is 80, 40 right here. This must be 20. Okay, and then if you go down below 0, this right here is going to be negative 20. Okay, so the y-intercept for this one here, that's B, that's going to be negative 20. All right, so in some cases, the line's going to cross the y-axis in the negative region. But everything else is the same.